Hi, everyone. It is Jaime Jo Wright here at MadLit Musings, and I'm excited today, like always, but always excited because the authors we have here are super cool. And today we have Karen Witemeyer with us. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
We are celebrating your new book called Fairest of the Heart that releases on June 6th. You know, the first time I saw the cover, I was just telling you, I decided I wanted all my book covers from here on out to be yellow because it's super sunshiny and happy and not at all what I write. But your book cover gives off the vibe of Snow White, and the title's Fairest of the Heart. So I'm assuming that was on purpose.
Absolutely, it was. So, yeah, this is the first book of my Texas Ever After series, which, as the name implies, is going to be a series of fairy tale retellings with a Texas twist, of course, since that's kind of my thing is Texas historical westerns. And I had a lot of fun playing homage to the classic Disney Snow White. So,
Yeah.
Disney's Snow White has this yellow skirt and this, blue and red top with the puffy sleeves. And I wanted, how can I do that and still be true to the time period and all of that? And so I had fun in the story. She's kind of piecing together some clothes that had been, donated to her. And then in the cover, they really captured that style, especially with the little puff sleeve,
Yeah.
which was actually true to that time period. And so it was really well done. I thought when you look at it, you kind of get that Snow White vibe.
Yes. And if people are watching on YouTube, it's the book right over your shoulder,
Oh, and I have a
I
copy
think. And you
right.
have a copy right there. Awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah, it totally has a Snow White vibe, but like you said, it fits the era that you're writing in. Because I noticed even just the style of her clothes, I'm like, that was really smart graphic work.
Yes, they did a great job.
They really did. Okay, so Snow White is one of my favorite Disney's. Um, do you have animals in your book? I just have to ask.
I do. I
Yay.
do. There's the one main besides the horses,
Okay.
the one main animal is a dog who I don't want to give too much away, but he was injured and being, kind of nursed back to health. And because he was kind of a discarded dog and
Mm.
she kind of felt like she had been discarded, the two of them really bonded.
Uh,
And so he becomes part of the family and all of that. And so the two of them are very close. But ironically enough, the hero is the one who finds the dog. And so he also has a relationship with the dog. So it kind of helps bring them together. But
hey, I
I
like
did
that.
have fun with, Snow White sings to the animals and all of that. So I did have a bird that flew by and, a few other little tidbits just thrown in there for fun. So
Some Snow White homages,
that's
and
right.
then you have the witch with the warty nose and the poison apple. I'm assuming you probably didn't go quite that far.
So just like in the Disney Snow White, the evil queen is really a very beautiful woman,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in my story, the villainess is this very stunningly beautiful actress. Who my Penelope Snow is the name of the heroine. She is a maid working for this actress, and so it's kind of the play off of the woman who uses her beauty to manipulate men and to further her career and
Mm.
all of that, and who really kind of sadly is so dependent on her beauty for her identity that when she starts to kind of age out of prime time, she doesn't really know how to handle that, and so she kind of takes things way too far. Whereas Penelope is kind of the innocent, humble person who is still extremely beautiful, but she tries to minimize her beauty.
Mm.
And because she's had some kind of scandals in the past that have come back to hurt her. And so she's trying to hide her beauty, but it's her inner beauty, of course, that just really shines through and attracts the hero. So
That's so cool. I love it. I love it. And so it takes place in Texas. We have a hero, we have a heroine, we have a dog, we have a villainess. What else do we have in this book? I mean, is there coffee for me at least, Karen?
I'm sure there's some coffee in there somewhere. But of course, the biggest Snow White character group that you can't
Mm-hmm.
miss are the seven dwarves, right?
True.
And so I had so much fun. So we have 7 retired drovers at the Diamond D Ranch. So And it is just so much fun. So these are a bunch of, retired cowboys who didn't have families of their own and didn't really have a place to go once they were too old to do the work that they were hired to do. And so it's kind of this geriatric nursing home for these old cowboys, but they all still have their skills and their abilities and all of that. And so they've kind of made their own little family. And of course, the one who is in charge of it all is a former doctor. And so he's, of course, Doc.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had fun with some of the names. So they're all cowboy names, but there's a few that kind of have some direct tie to the seven dwarfs. So Dusty is sneezy. So he has hay fever and is sneezing a lot. And coy is a synonym for bashful. And so he's kind of the shy, quiet in the background kind of guy. And so then, but I have, characters for all. So there's a grumpy character and there's a happy character and there's a lot of banter that goes along with those seven grandfathers as they kind of become to the heroine as she takes refuge at that ranch.
Yes.
So that, to me, that was where I added a lot of the humor and a lot of the fun really came in. And of course, there's some missing jewels too. So we have, the seven dwarves were miners in the original story. And so we kind of have some fun playing with that as well.
Oh gosh, this sounds so much fun. When I was little, the seven dwarfs were exactly what you just said. They were the grandfathers, and I loved all of them, and I would go to bed at night and I would wish that they were positioned around my bed, like the little fierce protectors. And I think if I'd woken up and actually seen some, I would have freaked out, but it was a good thought at the moment. Oh, this sounds so much fun. And so, okay, so you're writing the story, there's missing jewels, and I'm going to, go out on a limb and say there's romance.
Well, yes. So, I mean, I can't write a story without it. So there absolutely is. And of course, the hero is a Texas Ranger. So instead of a prince, he's a Texas Ranger. And he has reason to suspect Penelope of being the jewel thief. Okay. And so that's, so they're at odds at first because, he's all about, pushing his career to the next level. She's just trying to hide and recover from the ill treatment that she's received. Mm-hmm. And so, there's some conflict at the beginning, but, obviously he sees that there is more to her than what he was led to believe. And so they kind of together work to find out who the real culprit is. So.
Yes. Awesome. That sounds so cool. I love it. So when you were writing these books, what gave you the idea of retelling Snow White? I mean, that's not synonymous with Texas, so I'm not sure my brain would have gone there.
Well, and this is just one of those things where you write what you love, right? Yeah. So I was that little girl who had the Fisher-Price plastic record player and those records that I would have the Disney storybooks to read along with and sing the songs and all. So, I mean, I think that's why I love romance now, is because I fell in love with fairy tales, as a kid, and just love that happily ever after and that warm feeling you get and, that kind of thing. And so I've always loved fairy tales. And when I think about how that kind of combined with cowboys, I think that there are just kind of things that are timeless. And so when I've seen fairy tales retold, I've seen them done in medieval settings. I've seen them done in kind of fantasy-esque settings. I've seen quite a few done in contemporary settings. I really hadn't seen much of any done in Western historical settings. And so I thought, well, maybe this is a new place where people who love fairy tale retellings can find cowboys, and maybe this is a place that cowboy lovers can find fairy tale retelling, and just maybe appeal to a new group of readers, and also just combine two things that I love and that are fun for me. And so it's been a lot of fun to kind of combine two of the things that give me such joy, and I'm hoping they give readers joy as well.
Oh yeah, no, that's so cool. And I love that too, that you get to kind of revisit your child a little bit. Now you mentioned like the record player with the storybooks, and like, there's some people listening to this going, what's that? And I'm thinking, I used to listen to the Jungle Book and Aristocats. We'd get them from the library, and we get the big LP records. And
oh yes.
Oh, those were the best. It's like our form of Disney streaming service.
That's right.
In 1980 something.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, for me, it was 1980 something. I'm sure you probably did all the, replays in the 1990s because you're a little
Oh,
younger than me.
well, I was a child of the 80s. Well, I was, really a child of the 70s and the 80s.
There you go. Oh, fun. I love it. I love it. So one thing I know about you, Karen, is you also like to weave your faith into your books. And I think that's one of the things that Christian readers really love about your books is they know they're not just going to get entertainment, but they're going to get some sort of a faith message or theme or something that they can hopefully incorporate into their own walk with the Lord. So tell us a little bit about the journey that you take your characters on through the story.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of little threads that kind of go through. One of the big overarching themes is kind of this idea of family and belonging. Penelope was abandoned as an infant and left on the steps of a girls' school, and she was kind of raised on charity. And she never really felt like she had a place that she truly belonged. And so she was kind of seeking that. Titus, the hero, he's lost a brother. That's what got him interested in pursuing law enforcement with the Rangers, was trying to find that justice and closure for his family. And so he has some wounds that he's carrying around as well. He's kind of closed himself off, not wanting to get too close to anybody because he doesn't trust them, and
Right.
that kind of thing. And of course, then you have all these grandfather characters, who have kind of made their own little family, and they're welcoming both Titus and Penelope into this family. And so, being that message of being willing to put yourself out there and not be closed off out of fear of rejection or that kind of thing, but also just seeing yourself through the eyes of God, how he sees worth in everybody, no matter what your background or what you've been through and that kind of thing. You have worth and you have value, and being able to surround yourself with people who see that as well, and seeking those kind of people instead of those that are going to be putting you down and trotting on you and that kind of thing. They also have to deal with a lot of deception. So the villainess is very deceitful and works behind the scenes and that kind of thing. And so finding truth and standing up for truth, even when it puts you at risk. And so those kind of ideas as well come through. And of course, depending on God and your faith to see you through these hard times, when, Penelope is one of those characters who, some people might find her a little too perfect because she's able to keep a positive attitude even when she's been abused and through some really horrible things. But I have found in my life anyway, that to me, that's one of the biggest weapons as Christians that we have. There's a reason why the Bible says the joy of the Lord is my strength. It's because if you can find joy and find a positive way to look at things, it gives you the strength to keep going, even when life is so ugly. And so that's another theme that just is kind of, it doesn't really, it's not overt, but it's just kind of there woven through the characterization of the story.
Yeah. Well, that's great too, because, you think about it, and we could all sit down in a room, everybody listening right now, and we could all share an element of either a trial or a persecution or something that we're going through. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, I've heard negatives about Snow White before from the standpoint of she's not realistic. She's just too happy. If someone's chasing me through the woods, I'm not going to be singing songs to animals, and I'm like, yeah, right. She needs to go get an axe for herself. But, but then, you think about it, and there is that concept of, what is it? Paul says, and I always paraphrase because I can't memorize anything to save my life, but, consider it joy when you face trials of any kind. He doesn't like qualify when you face, trials that are above the grade of 8 to 10,
Right.
Even if your trial's a 1, consider it joy. If your trial's a 10, you're really going to have to work for it, but still grit your teeth and consider it joy. So, loaded question. When you have gone through life and you face trials and persecutions, how have you personally found the ability to find joy? Like, what is the difference between joy and just a really good day?
Absolutely. So obviously joy is not synonymous with happiness. I mean, I think happiness is very situation specific. If things are going well, you're happy. If things are going bad, you're sad. Joy is bigger than that. To me, it comes from a trust in God, right? We know that he can control anything. There is no problem too big for him. There is nothing he cannot handle. And we can find joy in trusting him to take care of the situation. So I also like to think, to remind myself that no matter how dark it is right now, there are blessings all around me. I just have to open my eyes to see them. Because when we get stuck in a negative rut, all we see is the negativity around us. But there are so many blessings that God is putting all around us to try to encourage our spirit and uplift us. And if we just shift our focus off of the negative onto what are my blessings, and like that old song says, count your many blessings, name them one by one. It seems like, okay, well, that's just, very pithy and fine, but that's not real. Well, it really is, because if you start focusing on the blessings, and it can be something so small, like I walk outside and the sun happens to be shining. Thank you for that blessing. That's wonderful.
Right.
Instead of just having your head down and just being so absorbed in your own trauma or whatever, being able to look around and see that God really has put thousands of blessings in our path if we have eyes to see them. And that's where the joy comes from.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of a neat analogy when you think you mentioned the sun shining, and I'm picturing Snow White kind of coming into the woods, and she's singing with the birds, and she is enjoying the dwarves, and yes, someone's trying to kill her. Not sure I can relate to that. That's never happened to me. So
Thank goodness.
we'll give her a 10. My trials are definitely a 9. But just the fact, it seems fairy tale-ish, but at the same time, when you look at the promises of God, and I think that might be why some people are like, well, it can't be true because life isn't a fairy tale. And yet God's promises give us that impression that he's going to get us through with sunshine and butterflies as we're walking through a storm. And that doesn't seem believable.
Right. Well, that the whole idea of, fairy tales is good triumphs over evil, love conquers all, all that kind of stuff. And people think, well, that's not realistic. But if you look at what Jesus accomplished, right, it's not romantic love, but his love conquered all. It conquered everything.
Yeah.
And, good really does triumph over evil in the end. And I think one of the reasons why fairy tales are so popular is because there's a piece of us that I think recognizes that that's what we long for. We long to believe that good is going to triumph over evil. We long to believe that love really can conquer all. Yeah. And I think we see that in what Jesus accomplished, even if it's not, a romantic storyline. I think that's what the bigger picture of love really is about.
Yeah, it's like the greatest romance, really, in one sense. And like you said, it's not romantic love, but that concept of the hero coming in, laying down their life, saving the person that needs saved. And, I think sometimes we look at our trials and we're like, oh, this is horrible. But looking past the trial and where God's going to take us and what he's going to do with it, a lot of times he asks us to walk through that. And you think about that with a fairy tale, you didn't get to Snow White's ending until you got through all the middle junk with the warty witch, as I called her growing up.
Absolutely.
So, but we do need some apples in our lives that aren't poisoned. That would be a good thing. Just a few, Lord. A few non-poisonous apples would be great right about now. Oh, fun. Okay, so this is the first in a 3-book set.
There will be 3 full-length novels, and then I'm planning a novella at the end as well. We'll see if that comes about or not. But
yeah,
for sure, 3 full-length novels.
Okay, and so can you tell us what other fairy tales might be highlighted, or is that top secret?
No, I'm happy to talk about it. So book 2 will be called If the Shoe Fits, or not If the Boot Fits, sorry, because it's cowboy. And so it's a reverse on, so it's a Cinderella story instead of Cinderella story. So we have a role reversal. Okay. And of course there's a cowboy boot that gets left at a ball and all this. So this one will have a little more, the Snow White story, Fairest of Heart, stayed fairly true to this overall storyline of Snow White. If the Boot Fits, will kind of have a few twists, not only the gender role reversal, but there's also, my heart gets a little bit sad with how stepmothers are treated in fairy tales.
Yes.
Because there are some really good stepmothers out there.
There really are. Yes, we need to celebrate stepmothers.
And, bend over backwards to make life better for them. And so, you know, since he plays the role of the Cinderella character, he has a stepmother and two stepbrothers, and she is just really a loving, nurturing stepmother. She is not the villainess in this story. And so we keep the villain a little bit secret. We don't know who the villain is until the very end of the story, because that was, you know, one of the twists that I wanted to do.
Right.
But it is kind of a, you know, she is the daughter of the cattle king, you know, of the area. And so, you know, she has that princess role. He's the pauper cowboy who's just barely making ends meet, and you know, that kind of thing. And so anyway, that's going to be a fun Cinderella retelling. And then book 3 is probably even more of a step away. So it's going to be a mashup of Little Red Riding Hood and Sleeping Beauty, which seems kind of, they don't overlap too much. But anyway, so it's I don't know if this is going to be the official title or not. My current working title is Riding with Miss Hood.
Sorry.
To have kind of the play off of, you know, Little Red Riding Hood. And but her backstory and kind of the plot that's pushing her along is more similar to Sleeping Beauty's backstory and plot. So there's you know, there's a threat that's going to come when she turns 21, and you know, all this kind of stuff, and she has to go into hiding, and then she, you know, and so there's a lot of the Sleeping Beauty backstory and plot, whereas she also is in the woods with a hooded cape. So
yeah, hey, you know, mashups can be great. For a second, I thought you were going to be like, it's Aladdin meets Sleeping Beauty. I'm like, ooh, do we have a flying magic carpet in Texas?
Ooh, that would be fun. I'm sure we could figure out something.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that would be interesting. Now my brain's working on that one, but that'll be your novella, right?
And of course, my very favorite fairy tale is Beauty and the Beast. And so right now that is the planned, if I can do a novella and squeeze it in, because it's not currently contracted. So it would probably be an indie novella, but I would really love to do a Beauty and the Beast, because who doesn't love Belle? I mean, she's book loving princess. You got to do something with that.
I mean, you can't. In fact, have you ever taken those tests on, they're so dumb, those little Facebook tests, you know, like, which Disney princess are you?
Yeah.
And I even try and rig the answers, like, oh, this is going to get me Belle. This is getting, and I always get Mulan. I never get Belle. Like, but books, not swords. Apparently there's a fighter spirit in me or something that I wasn't aware of. But yeah, Belle is, I think she might be the ultimate fairy tale for book lovers.
Yeah.
I really do. And I'm really torn on whether I like the cartoon version or the live action version.
They were both good.
So I definitely think we need a Karen Witemeyer version, because then that's just going to take it. So.
Well, I'll do my best.
Oh, fun. All right. So if readers want to get a hold of you, this book, learn more about you, because you've got a whole backlist of stories to read, where do they go?
So the easiest place to find me and my books is on my website, KarenWitemeyer.com. That's, you know, have all the information there for you. If you want to interact with me, the place where I am the most active online is in my Facebook group called The Posse. So there's a link on my website, or if you just search Facebook for The Posse, you should be able to find it. And I'm there 5 days a week. We have wonderful conversations about books, about cowboys, about just life. And one of the things that I love about this group is they help me brainstorm some of my characters. They'll help me find, hey, we think this would be a really cool looking hero. And they help me with name. They were the ones that helped me name the 7 dwarves.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, they really take an active role in helping me as I'm, you know, trying to figure out what these people are going to look like and what they're going to be named, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. They especially helped me name like the animals. So we had, you know, like the horse and the dog and all of that. So it's a lot of fun. I like to keep my readers involved in the process as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's super fun. So yeah, definitely check out Karen's Facebook group, The Posse. And you said we can find that just by going to your website, which is KarenWitemeyer.com.
Correct. Yes.
All right. Awesome. Well, if you have not read Karen Witemeyer and you're a Christian book reader, then go read Karen Witemeyer. If you're not a Christian book reader, go read Karen Witemeyer. And if you love fairy tales, then definitely read The Fairest of Heart, which comes out June 6th. And we'll be hitting bookstores really soon, like a couple days as far as when we're recording this podcast. And I have my copy, so I'm going to go take pictures with it and post it all over social media so y'all can see the pretty yellow cover. So, Karen, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's been a blast.
I've had so much fun. Thank you for inviting me.